Hello, soul seekers. So, welcome to my Designing Your Soul Led Life webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gail and I'm a soul coach and an intuitive and an empath. And I'm here to help you understand about how to connect to your soul and how to start designing your life in accordance with where your soul is guiding you towards, and really how to get rid of the fluff, get rid of the sticky stuff that is stopping you from connecting and finding out what your truest, deepest potential is, right? All of my work is about authentic living. So let's dive straight into finding out about designing your soul led life. So, some of you might be asking, what is soul led living? So, soul led living is about reconnecting with the lost parts of self. This is where I always take my clients first, to look at their inner child, to understand that this part of them, this wounded part of self, that I will explain more about as we go through this webinar, is constantly looking for your attention. It's not looking for mom and dad, it's looking for you. And your inner child also holds this place where you've kind of hidden this part of you, holds talents and gifts that you've maybe left behind, or you maybe don't even know they're there yet. Soul-led living is also about clearing out any conditioning that may be holding you back. This includes those terrible repeating patterns in your life, right? Most of the time, those patterns are something that has you stuck in a loop, and it's all in your subconscious mind. You might be able to see them. You might say, well, I see that I've chosen this new person, this new relationship, but actually it's turned out like my old relationship, right? So we want to start looking at those patterns and figuring out what is it in your subconscious that is making this play out over and over again. Soul-led living is also about uncovering any family patterns that you may be repeating, because many times we repeat the patterns of our parents or our grandparents, some other generation. We don't just repeat our own, we repeat theirs. Soul-led living is also about unhooking yourself from old wounds and any past traumas. So anything that's happened in your life where you feel like, this event happened or someone did something and you blame them for how you turn out. We want to stop doing that and really turn around and look at the past trauma, not so that we dive into it, but so that we can pull it out and ask ourselves, what is it that needs to be met within me so that I can get past this? It's also about cultivating a connection to your soul voice. This is the thing that all of my clients want. They want a connection to a deeper, all-knowing voice within them, something that is parenting them in situations in life. And it's tricky at first because the ego voice is usually the loudest, and I will be talking more about the ego in this webinar and why ego is not actually necessarily a bad thing. But this is where we want to get to. We want to have a soul voice that's so connected that we can reach it and we can listen to it and hear it at any point that we desire. It's also about defining who you desire to become in alignment with your soul. So all human beings have desire, and you can define what you want by setting goals or setting intentions. But if it's out of alignment with your soul, it's probably not going to happen. Usually a desire that is out of alignment with soul is ego-led, right? Or it's led from a wounded inner child. So we want to get in alignment with our soul so that we can actually manifest fully what is our true desire, which is always soul-led. We also want to create space for clarity and insights to happen daily. This is what soul-led living is really about. And you can have insights and clarity daily in your world. I know because it happened to me. As soon as I started to wake up to the blocks within myself, I started to really have insights on a regular basis that could help me see myself and witness who I was showing up as in the world. We are the creators of our world, so don't forget that. And also, law of attraction in action is absolutely soul-led living. Not law of attraction where we just think about what we want and we expect it to land in our laps. That doesn't work. We need to have our part in play with the universe. We need to go and meet the universe in action. And this for me includes looking at synchronicities, looking at what's showing up in the world, looking at the guidance of which steps I should take and which I shouldn't, looking at my dreams, which we do in my Align course, where we really dive into dreams and look at the symbolism that's coming through from your subconscious to give you information, and also visualizations. So not just visualizing, just sitting here and hoping that something's going to happen by, playing it out in your head. We bring that out into the 3D, and we bring what is inside of us to fruition in the 3D. So some of you might be saying, that all sounds great, but I'm not quite sure that that's for me. So let's look at who soul-led living is for. It's definitely for those of you who want a deeper, truer understanding of yourself, right? It's definitely for you if you're wanting to be soul-led. It's for those of you who are tired of the mundane and want extraordinary. You might be tired of living the same repeating pattern, tired of being in your job and not being happy, tired of the relationship issues that keep coming up. Why do you keep choosing that abusive partner? Why do you keep choosing people who abandon you? Why does it never work, right? You might be sick of that. You might want something different. You want extraordinary in all aspects of your life. It's for those of you who are ready to release painful repeating patterns in your lives. As you just said, some of that around relationships. And it's for those of you who are really fully ready to live life on your own terms, where you want to be free to be a creator in your world. It's for those of you who understand that you are creators of your experience. Okay, so soul-led living is for the creators, those who are willing to take responsibility for their experience. Soul-led living is for those who feel something more is trying to come through them and will do whatever it takes to step up. Because many, many people in life unfortunately play like sheep. We feel something more is trying to come through, but we deny it because we feel like we're not enough. And so we stop our soul from activating in this 3D world. We live life kind of like we're in a shell, So I want you to be able to understand that soul-led living needs you to step up. Your soul is calling you always forward. It's for those of you who are ready to trust your intuition and follow it. So soul-led living is absolutely about connecting to the guidance in the body. The soul resides in the body. And you need to connect to your gut, and you need to have it clear to hear what is coming through. But the other part of it is you need to follow it. You need to make a stand and say, okay, even if this guidance doesn't meet in the workings of my brain, maybe my mind cannot figure out why I should be doing this, it doesn't make sense to it, I'm going to follow it and trust it anyway. So you need to cultivate some faith within yourself. It's also for those who have tried and are tired of working it out by themselves. You've tried it and you just can't be bothered trying to figure it out on your own anymore. You need some help, right? People who are soul-led, they look for mentors, they look for tribe. They don't leave themselves alone to figure it out, because a soul-led person knows that that is not how this life works. So this little grumpy face here depicts who soul-led living isn't for. So if you listen to that and you say, yeah, I want that, I think that's for me, you might be wondering who it isn't for, so I'm going to cover it. It's not for those who aren't ready to take responsibility. You have to be able to look at yourself and know that you are the creator of your experience, and understand that if you don't take responsibility for your world, you're going to keep giving it outside of yourself. You're going to put the blame and the shame outside in the world, and that's not how it works. You have to take responsibility for your part, your role in this movie that you're playing in life. It's not for those who blame God, life, their family, their ex, their boss, or their children, etc., because there could be many other things about why they are the way they are or for how their life is. Because you are the starting point. You are the common denominator in your life. It's not for those who don't want to have more fun and joy in their lives. So if you're not a person who desires to have more fulfillment, more happiness, more freedom, more clarity, more love, then it's not for you. If you're quite happy to be in that mundane job that does not fulfill you, or you're quite happy to be in the relationship where it feels safer rather than juicier, then this is probably not for you. It's not for those who aren't ready to do their inner work. You know, the inner work sometimes is painful. Sometimes there's parts of us we don't really want to witness. We don't want to have to see who we've been and what we've chosen. We don't want to have to take responsibility for where we are at in life. So if you're not ready to do that inner work, which actually the majority of the planet are not ready to do, then it's probably not for you. It's not for those who aren't ready to be vulnerable. Are you ready to get real? Are you ready to be honest? Are you ready, finally, to speak your truth about what your life experience is and who you are underneath? You have to get vulnerable in order to really be soul-led. It's not for those who want to hold on to their past. We look at the past to figure out where the patterns are, but we do not dive into the past and blame it for our present or our future. And it's not for those who aren't ready to let their ego get out of the driving seat. For most people in life right now, even though there are many of us awakening, but the majority are still letting the ego drive, and they don't even understand that their ego is driving their car. They are literally one with the ego. They have no idea they are much more powerful than that. So as I said, I'm Gail, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm a soul alignment strategist, or a soul alignment therapist, some call me. And I'm an empath and intuitive. So this gives me the ability to feel you, to feel into your energy and feel the blocks and to intuit the things that are holding you back. And, you know, I really want to help you to align. I love this word, and this is why I call my course Align, because alignment is where it's at. It's not about finding happiness. It's not about finding the love of your life. It's about aligning with yourself so that you are happiest with yourself and you become the love of your life. And then anything else that happens on top of that is the cherry on the cake. Okay? So I want to tell you a little bit about me. I wasn't always aware of myself, right? So I want to explain to you that I wasn't always as clear as I am these days. I, struggled with emotional balance, as empaths usually do. Empaths are notoriously terrible with boundaries, and, I had difficulty in understanding myself. I felt like I was different and I didn't fit in, as empaths usually do also. I had unhealthy boundaries, as I said before. I was a person who could feel other people's emotions, but I wasn't clear whether the other people's emotions were my emotions or whether they were blaming me, or, it was a world of chaos inside of me. And I actually didn't feel like I could verbalize my emotions effectively. So I held a lot of this in. I had limiting beliefs that held me back also. And I was an absolute overgiver. I did this in my career and different careers that I had in life. And I did this always in my relationships. I gave my power away regularly to everybody. I felt guilty if I said no. I was always just doing what I didn't want to do. I did things I did want to do, but I did many things that I really should have said no to. I couldn't speak my truth easily. I found that a real struggle. And ironically, I was a singer. And that's really where I learned to release many of my emotions, because I couldn't actually speak them in just my normal everyday life. But the thing that saved me was my gut instinct. My gut instinct, coupled with my desire to grow, became my savior. My gut instinct was always pretty switched on. And the thing is, my gut instinct could have been switched on, but without the desire to grow, I maybe would have stayed stuck. So, what changed? Well, I noticed a lot of repeating patterns, a lot of negative repeating patterns that were happening to me. I clocked that kind of early on. And I also experienced anxiety and depression, which many of you spiritual catalysts do. Many of us who are awakening go through a depression, and unfortunately, we're taught that we're depressed and we go on pills, and no one checks our past. No one checks our innermost emotions. No one checks what's really trying to speak to us. So I fell into an anxiety and depression for about a year, where I didn't even work for that year. I just was completely lost within myself. I also had universal butt kicks that forced me to wake up. Universal butt kicks are where there are lots of red flags or white flags that are waving in your world. The white flags are trying to pull you forward, and the red flags are saying, don't go this way. And you ignore them for whatever reason, usually because of some kind of fear or limited thinking. And eventually, your soul will force you to wake up. It will give you experiences where it says, you're not listening, so now I have to do this other thing. And we can learn through a couple of modalities, pain or insight. But unfortunately, most human beings choose pain because their ego is so strong, it's continually trying to create safety rather than growth. There was also divine intervention. So one of my butt kicks, in a sense, was my little girl's allergies. When I had my daughter 11 years ago, she basically had a ton of allergies that I then had to change our diet. I had to clean it up. I had to stop eating all of the processed foodstuffs and get really super clean in order to heal her. And I became so determined that it worked. I did that. But what I noticed was that it also changed me. So I cleaned up my diet and my clarity up leveled like exponentially. My diet was primarily raw. It had a lot of juices in there, green juices, which really propelled my awareness of myself and really allowed me to release toxic emotions. And I'll be explaining a little bit more about that right at the end of the webinar. I met people who were also on the same path as me. I sought out tribe. And that was really deliberate. I knew I needed to find people who could understand what was going on for me. I experienced synchronicities and started to watch out for them. As I said before, that this is one of the keys for me, really looking at what the universe was delivering back to me. I was synchronistically offered some coaching. A friend of mine was training to do a course called Calling in the One. She was training to be a coach. And even though I was in a relationship and this course was apparently about finding your perfect partner, it really was about finding the perfect self. It was about connecting authentically to you and stripping back your conditioning. And this really intrigued me. And I had the opportunity to do this course with her. And I really attribute much of my growth to that period of time by really letting my friend coach me through many situations where I saw I was showing up as a victim within my family. I was showing up as a victim in my world, and to clear that out so I was taking responsibility for my life. I also started meditating and devouring anything I could that would bring me to more awareness of myself. So I changed my trajectory. I really put my focus on wanting to grow and up level. I was starting to wake up and I got hungry. I was really hungry for change. I wanted to realize the fullness of myself. And I decided that I was done. I was absolutely done with living how I'd been living before. I'm not saying there was anything wrong with me, like inherently wrong with me, but I knew that I was living at such a small level compared to where I could be within myself. I wanted to become wiser. I wanted to become more connected. I wanted to do some good in the world. And I was done with living how I was before. I was ready to move and take a step forward. So I want to now get my teeth in. I want to now show you this little diagram. And some of you will recognize it as the chakras, or the chakras, as some people call it. But I want to start with it a little bit differently. I'm going to take you through my model of how this relates to the body. Because as I said, soul resides in the body, and so does your inner child, right? It's in your cellular memory. No one knows where consciousness resides. Science can't even prove it yet. But I'm telling you this. Your body and your mind are one and connected. They are not separate. Your body is not where your your mind is not where your consciousness is. Your body is connected to this wisdom. So first off is your inner child, which is your root and your foundation. It is your fear, right? Like the root chakra would say, if you have a deficiency in this area. But it's also in the positive aspects, when you connect to your inner child, it is your starting point. It's where we must go. and we must reconnect in order to move forward, right? If you don't know how to do that, you are going to be at a deficit when you try to manifest in your world, because this part of you is always asking for your attention. And the inner child is really the wounded self. It's the part of you who has learned how to be in the world in order to be lovable, in order to be accepted by your family. It's not the wonder child where you come into the world. It's the part of you where you became conditioned. And so we need to go and check in with this part of us and find out what he or she needs. The next step is family conditioning. We look at the family conditioning to see where we've taken personality traits on that are maybe not so becoming, to see where we are a catalyst in our family line. What is it about us that's different, where the line is trying to change? And we want to look at this conditioning and see whether or not we've taken on personalities from our mom and dad or further back down the generations that are not even us, that were never even meant to be in us, but we've created a persona around it. So we go and look there. We then look at our core beliefs and personality. So the core beliefs that you have about sexuality, about race, about your potential, about this, the cap, the ceiling that you have on your life, about your children, about whatever it is. We look at the core beliefs and we really start to figure out what is good for us and what is bad for us, what is holding us back and what will help to drive us forward, because there's always something in there that a lot of the time we can't actually see without another party helping us see it. That's hugely important. And then we look at love ability, and I've written it this way because it's not just about how lovable you are, it's about how well you are able to love others and how well you are able to love yourself. Are you able to love yourself fully as you are today? Or do you have judgments around that? Let's look at that. Let's start to open your heart. And we cannot get to this place, right? Speaking your truth and really connecting to your power. This is your power place here. Without doing these first steps, you will be taken off track. You won't really believe what you're trying to manifest and create in your world until you start to speak your truth. And the more open this chakra becomes, because for many of us it's kind of closed, the more open it is, the more you speak into the world what you actually desire from a soul-led place, the more quickly it can manifest. And the more you will feel your power switch on inside of you, and you'll stop seeking satisfaction outside of you. And that satisfaction might be that perfect partner, or it might be more money, or it might be the new house, or it might be a child, or whatever it is you think is going to make you happier. Your power will switch back on, and you'll find that those things start to fall away unless your soul is saying that's your next step, right? After this, we get to clarity and insight. And this is where we really start to understand ourselves. We really start to understand what part of us is speaking. What's in our head speaking? We have insight on when the ego is speaking. We know when our inner child is speaking. We know when fear from the inner child is calling us to parent ourselves. We cannot get here without doing all the work before. We need to clear the path, and we need to make sure that we understand our thinking, our limiting beliefs, our limited thinking, and our power, right? Our power gives us another gateway to really putting soul into our minds. Our soul voice starts to be cultivated. It's not something that just appears. You have to work at it. And the soul voice, as I said, will pop in only after we clear this, and we cultivate this like we're going to the gym. At first it's hard. At first we might hear our soul voice as a whisper. For many of us, there are times in our life when we have troubles, where we hear a little voice somewhere deep inside that says it will be okay. Somewhere very quietly. And you can make that voice louder, but only once you've settled the ego and you've connected with the inner child. And I'll go into more detail about this now. So basically, here is your inner child, right? This little boy or girl looking cute is the direct connection between, your wounded self and your soul. between your wonder and your soul, between the first self that came into the world and your soul. You cannot develop a soul voice connection without connecting to this inner child within you. So we need to start at the root, and the root is your inner child. Our inner child is the wounded self, the unloved parts of self, the emotional wounds that are still affecting us subconsciously today. Because some of you might say, well, I'm fine. I don't feel like I'm in pain. I don't hear that. You're a very lucky person if you don't have any of that, because most people do have something. But really, if you look at your life and there's repeating patterns that are happening and there's some toxicity happening, there's something going on in your subconscious. It happens to everyone. And when we build trust by witnessing our inner child, reconnecting to this part, right, we start to claim the parts of us that have been ignored for years. And I do mean years. And as I said before, this part of you is not looking for your mom and dad. It is the part of you that did seek your mom and dad, probably seeking the parent that it didn't have. But it's no longer looking for them. It's absolutely looking for you. And actually, only you can help to alleviate this. No relationship, no partner can do this for you. If a good partner can give reflections back to you, but they can't heal this for you. You have to go and regain the trust of your own inner child. And so how do we do this, right? This little girl with her hand up. How do we do this? Well, we do this when we start listening. We need to start listening deeply to ourselves and stop denying the things that the inner child is saying to us. And I also want to cover this, I did mention it briefly, that your wonder child is directly connected to your soul. The wonder child is the child before the conditioned self. The wonder child is the child that had all the wonder it needed when it came into the world to really want to reach out and seek other people, and to reach out and seek enlightenment, and to reach out and seek play and fun and happiness and love in particular. That's the wonder of you. The one that is creative, wants to bring something out of itself into the world and be part of the world. So we want to get back to that, but we must connect with the wounded self first. And as I've said that, we will now look at the trine of the wounded psyche. So this is my model of what happens in the psyche between the inner child, the ego, and the parental self. So here we have the scared inner child. The scared inner child is really probably very exhausted and tired of being frightened of certain things, right? This is the self who was conditioned, maybe was afraid of mom, or maybe was afraid of dad, or maybe had really lovely parents, but actually just wasn't met emotionally. I have many clients who have that. I have clients who have had trauma, anything from, abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, abandonment. But I also have some clients who have parents who actually were pretty good, but they maybe just weren't emotionally available. And so what happens is we learn to adapt. We learn to create a personality so that we still fit, that we'll still be lovable. And our inner child at this point is really between probably anything between 0 to maybe the age of 12. You are a psychic sponge. You are just learning and adapting over and over and over again, and trying to figure out how to remain within the family unit, how to be lovable, how to be accepted. Round about the age of 12, what happens is your ego develops. Now, your ego maybe doesn't look like this, but I'm using him here as a kind of descriptive tool because he could be a bit scary, but he also could be quite sweet and cuddly. Depends on maybe the time of day. Maybe if you met him on a dark night, you wouldn't really like him very much. And the ego kind of works this way. The ego develops around about the age of 12, maybe 12 to 18. Depends on how mature you are. The ego is the I am. The I am develops naturally in order for us to separate from our parents. It wants you to become an individual, right? You've known what it's like to be part of a group. Now it wants you to know what it's like to be you, by yourself. What talents do you have? What things do you want to create? It brings the I am into existence. The problem is that we don't really know how to develop into fully rounded adults because we don't have parents or caregivers or teachers who are teaching us to connect to ourselves. They're teaching us to fill our minds and telling us who to be and who to show up as, but they don't teach us to connect to ourselves fully and deeply, especially not emotionally. So what ends up happening is this ego doesn't really fully develop and kind of becomes this archetypal teenager. It says, I will not let you near this wound of mine, this inner child of mine. I will not let you hurt this part of me. But unfortunately, because of the subconscious and the way it works, we end up being attracted to situations and people who have reflections of the wounds that we have inside of us. But this ego thinks it's doing a job, It's probably very tired doing this job of protecting, okay? So in this picture here, you maybe look at the inner child and say, oh, she's frightened of the ego. But actually, no, her ego is her protector. He's standing as the guard. What she's really afraid of is this, which is the critical parent within you. So the third part of the trine is the parent within, because we don't develop into fully rounded adults, not fully and completely. We're kind of thrown out after school or college into the world and told to get a job, and then we're adults. That's it. We end up with this critical inner parent that has to drive us forward in life, right? Because we sort of need something like that to make us become more adult. But the problem is it's usually the voice of one or both of our parents who is critical, not loving. Because the inner child has connected to, the biggest amount of emotion. And usually the most trauma that's caused in a body, in your actual physical body, is when there's pain. And that is a very heightened emotion. So usually we remember the negative things that our parents have said about us rather than all the positive things that come up. And so what we're actually witnessing here is the inner child is afraid of your inner critical parent. And the ego is not the bad guy. The ego is just doing a job that he thinks he needs to do. So we don't really have to get rid of him. We just have to allay the ego's fears, gain trust with the inner child and the parent by changing the parent's voice. This is where we cultivate your soul voice, right? We don't need to eradicate him. All we need to do is make your inner child happier. All we need to do is regain the trust of the inner child. We just need to meet him or her and really start to love them as a parent would, right? You need to love yourself as an archetypal parent would, right? If you want to talk to your children in a critical way, what happens? They start to fear you. That's the old paradigm of punishment. We are moving forward into a paradigm of encouragement. Okay, so if we're moving forward into that space with our children in the 3D, we must do it within ourselves. We must become encouraging with ourselves and talk to ourselves like we are a little child when we are in fear. Talk to ourselves like a little child when we are angry. Talk to ourselves with compassion, but also become action-taking and disciplinarian, not in a crazy way, but in a caring way. So our wonder child is this little person on the left, and our soul voice is the person on the right. And this is how we cultivate that direct connection with fear and with love within ourselves. We hold both entities. And so how do we do this? How do we cultivate this? How do we go from fear to this loving connection with ourselves? Well, this is where we start, okay? This little cheesy interpretation of parents. And you can do this with me right now, right? You can take a pen and paper and write down who your mum and dad showed up as for you. And what I mean by that is who they showed up as for you when you were a child, not now when you're an adult, because people's personalities kind of adapt as we get older. So we want to look at who they showed up as you when you were a child, right? And I have to say, for some of you, you might find this uncomfortable because many of my clients don't like this bit because they have to really recognize what their inner child says about mom and dad. Did your mom abandon you? Did you feel abandoned emotionally? Did your dad shout at you? Was he aggressive with you? And you can write down the negatives on one side, but I also want you to write down the good stuff on the other. Right? On the other side, you can write down whether mother was loving and caring, she fed you a lot when she showed you love, your dad bought you gifts, or your dad was present with you very often when you were emotional. Whatever it is, you write it down. And then after this is a little bit tricky. I want you to circle the good and the bad of each parent. You circle what you are holding within you. What traits did you take on from mom and dad? What is going on within you? Now, the reason that we do this is not so that we go, oh no, I've become my parent and I didn't want to be that. It's so that you see that you've taken it on and you can't hide from it anymore because you've now brought it from your subconscious out into the 3D onto paper. And now you get to choose whether or not you want to have that personality or not. Do you want that piece in you or not? And the biggest part about this is you get to see what you've taken on that was never yours to begin with. It wasn't yours to begin with. Some things can trickle through nature, through your DNA, but lots of it happens in nurture. And no matter whether it happens in nature or nurture, you as a creator of your world still get to choose. You still get to choose who you are. Okay? So I want you to think about this, okay? It doesn't take very long. Just take some time to think about it. And if you don't have time to complete it now, you can do it after the webinar is finished. And I would love to hear what you learn about yourself. If you go to my soul circle on Facebook, it's at facebook.com/groups/yoursoulrevealed. I'd love you to share in the group what you realize about yourself in this exercise. So, this is great, Gail. I get to see my mom and my dad and who they showed up as for me or didn't show up as for me. And I now see what I've taken on. But what does this have to do with living in alignment with your soul? Well, what I want you to understand is that you are programmed very heavily, and it stops you from connecting to the deepest parts of you. It stops connecting to the truest part of you. Your mind has been layered up with a personality construct based on you believing you have to be a certain way and you believing that certain parts of you are not acceptable and not lovable. And there's a deeper connection in this. It's not just about the mind, as I've said before, right? The mind believes it's master when it's not. The master is actually the body. The body's giving you information all the time. The mind is just the receiver of the information. I want you to get to a point where you understand that your soul, your inner child residing in the body, gives you information through your gut. The gut really is the first brain, and it sends information to your mind that you can then interpret. But the problem is, if the mind is filled with persona, it cannot interpret the signals from the gut effectively because it's disconnected. It doesn't even realize that there are signals coming from the gut. It doesn't realize the body is speaking. So soul-led living really includes looking at the personality you've taken on, clearing that up and starting to create some space in the mind, so then we can do the deeper work of connecting to the gut, connecting to the emotional brain, and discerning what's happening within us on a deeper level. So back to my little diagram. We have gone over the inner child, family conditioning, core beliefs and personality, and we need to clear that up. And now we need to look at lovability. So we can't love ourselves fully when we are blind to parts of ourselves. I think that's a beautiful statement that maybe you want to write down and remember. We can't love ourselves fully when we are blind to parts of ourselves. And that's why life will bring you many, many opportunities to wake up. Many opportunities, sometimes through pain, because until you witness who you're being in the world, you can't love yourself fully, and it means that you can't really love others fully. So we need to ramp up our lovability. And here's another little exercise that I would like you to do around your lovability. And I know we're going through this really quickly. I do much more of this in my Align course, but I really want to give you as much as I can today. So ask yourself, which parts of yourself do you feel are unlovable? There might be just a few, there might be many. It doesn't matter, just write them down. And this little diagram I've put here because many times when we ask ourselves this, for many ladies anyway, and probably some of the gents, we tend to look at the outside. We tend to look at, oh, I hate my wobbly thighs. I hate my bags under my eyes. I don't like my nose. I don't like my freckles. I've got that extra roll of fat, whatever it is. And we tend to pick at ourselves and prod at ourselves and really just be negative about ourselves. But that really reflects something else that's going on underneath, which is this. The belief that you are worthless or screwed up or invisible, that you're damaged. You know, I keep saying to people, you're not broken. You just don't trust yourself. It's not about being broken or damaged. You just don't trust yourself. But you might feel these things, that you're unlovable and you're scared and you're sad because you feel that way. So it's much more important to look at the belief underneath. That's where the issue is. Ego will whisper in your ear and it'll stop you from loving yourself. Excuse me. Let's take some water. Ego will whisper. And the trouble with ego whispering in your ear is that your ego resides in your head. And the ego, as a protector, will be constantly speaking to you every time it feels you're at threat. But every time you're also going to grow, it will speak in your ear and say, you can't do this. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't step forward. You know, it's too much. It's, you know, it'll be too long. It'll take too much effort. You know, whatever thing it wants to say about you, it will try and stop you. And ego, because it resides in your head, is so close to the ear, it's so easy for it. The soul voice, however, that, you know, this little cheesy image that I have here of this little angel chatting in this lady's ear, it resides in the body. You have to create space for it. You have to really start to understand that the soul voice needs a little bit of time to get to your mind, to get to your brain and deliver you the truth of you. Okay? So we want to get to lovability by recognizing that your soul voice is connected to your gut. It comes up through the heart and speaks to the mind. Don't believe the first thing you think. So let's check whereabouts you don't feel lovable, and let's understand that the brain is really good at feeding that information to you. The next step is learning to speak your truth, learning about your power. So truth talk or truth speak for me is really like a cork that is really waiting to be unplugged for many, many, many people. And it literally comes off like that. And sometimes for some people, when you start speaking your truth, all of your emotions starts to come out. So just be prepared. Some of my clients have become a little bit angry when they start to speak their truth because they haven't been doing so for so long. But truth speaking is one of my 4 pillars of consciousness. It's necessary. The first is the inner child. The second is the clearing of the conditioning. The third is self-love, looking at where you do not love yourself and learning how to love yourself, which I teach on Align. We really go in a whole week of that, look at it really deeply. And the next is then finding your true power, which is in the speaking of your truth. Truth in alignment with soul, not truth that is vomiting emotion on another person or vomiting emotion out blaming God or the world. It's about really owning your power and learning to speak your truth with compassion and authenticity. So here's another little exercise that you can do today. Ask yourself, where am I not speaking my truth? Right? Because this is going to take vulnerability. And most of us have issues with being vulnerable. We're afraid of losing that relationship. We're afraid of the partner not liking what we say and falling out with us. We're afraid to ask the boss for a wage rise because we don't think we're going to get it. You know, we're afraid of many, many things. So Ask yourself today, is there something inside of you where you're not speaking your truth? There's something about your world where you need to step up, but there's fear. Who am I not speaking my truth to, and why? Let's start asking conscious questions around this. Let's not hide from it anymore. What am I frightened of? What is the repercussion that you think might happen if you were to speak your truth? And ultimately, if you can get to that, what is your core belief underneath it? Because usually when we're frightened of speaking, let's say to a partner, there's a core belief underneath of not being seen, right? Of not being loved, of being unlovable maybe, because if the surface fear can be the fear of the partner leaving or the fear of the partner judging you, but underneath there's always a core belief of being unlovable or being unworthy or something else. What is that? Let's go deeper. So we have rushed through inner child, family conditioning, core beliefs and personality, lovability and true power, right? Your truth talk. And next we have clarity and insight. So my little gift for you today around clarity and insight is that consciousness resides in the question. The question must be aligned with growth, okay? So we're asking questions here. You notice I'm getting you to write down mum and dad and looking at what you've taken on and looking at where you're not speaking your truth and why. And we have to make sure the questions are aligned with consciousness. We can't ask questions from ego, because if we ask a question like, what's wrong with me? The ego is going to feed back all the things that are wrong with you, because that's an ego-led question. So it has to be aligned with growth. It has to be something that is going to pull the truth out and pull you forward. It has to be something like, why, okay, maybe not why this situation is happening, but maybe what is it about this situation that I can learn from? What is my soul trying to teach me, right? What is the next step that I'm being shown? What unlove am I being asked to clear? What fear am I being asked to clear, right? So it has to be aligned with growth. It has to have positive intention. So like I said, not something that's like, what's wrong with me, which is negative. It has to have a positive reflection in it. It has to be something that is facing the future and looking at where you grow forward. And it also has to be disciplined. So this is the thing with learning to cultivate a soul voice. It has to be a voice that has some discipline that says, did you notice that you asked a negative question and we're not going to answer that, thanks. Right? You don't ask a question that takes you on a negative spiral downwards and get anywhere. Right? And it's then really hard when you're on that downward spiral to get back up. It takes longer to climb back up the further down the rabbit hole you go. So we have to be disciplined in the questions that we're asking. This is your foundation, right? We're rushing through this today, and many of you might struggle with this, but I'm trying to get little bits out to you so you can start doing the work already. So then, after we have started to regain some clarity and insight into who we are showing up as and actually taking some responsibility, we then are starting now to connect to our soul voice, which is directly linked to our intuition. Directly linked. So I want to bring you back. This little guy here, this little girl here, this inner child that we started with. But let's change her a little bit, or him a little bit. This is actually more what your inner child looks like at the moment. And the problem is that fear resides in the gut as well as the connection to your inner child and your soul. Fear can clog this area. Fear in this area means that your ego is basically going to be dominant. It's going to be protecting you. It's going to be the thing that you hear first. Because the fear, where there's no trust with the inner child, is blocking the pathway. An ego can literally run the show. This isn't ideal, quite obviously. Ego believes he's your protector. Excuse me. He believes that you need to stay in this little cardboard box where you are safe. You might have everything you need in there. It might look like the most amazing room you've ever been in your life. Might even have a swimming pool. but it's really a prison. He's not really your protector. He's like your prison warden. He stops you living life to your fullest potential. What we want to do is to get you to the point where you reach the edges of your box and you peek outside of it and you realize that your ego is not protecting you from anything. He's actually holding you back from the next level. We need to take him out of the equation, right? And the way we do this is not by eradicating ego. We just need to let him go on a holiday. We do this by eradicating the critic within us. It's the parent that is causing your fear. It is the critical thinking, the voice within your mind that is creating this horrible disconnection. So we need to say goodbye to our inner critic. We're done with her, goodbye, or him. And we want to create this connection between your inner child and you. One that is compassionate, an inner parent who has kindness, who is encouraging, who sees you for all that you are, all of your potential, who is action taking and disciplined. Okay, so it's not just about the compassion and the encouragement and kindness. You also need to be action taking and disciplined with yourself. Your soul voice will never say anything mean about you, but it will still call you out on your crap, right? So this inner parent, this soul voice that we want to cultivate, will look after you. It's basically encompassing the archetypal mother and father principles within you. So all of us deserve to align, and all of us desire to align. This is why we're constantly seeking things in life to make us happier. We're actually seeking alignment, not happiness. Happiness comes when you align. And so is it time for you to design your soul-led life? And I'm going to tell you more about my 12-week soul alignment course. So week 1 on our Align course is the inner child reconnection, where I start at the root and we connect you to your inner child and we help to regain that trust between you that's been lost for all this time. Your inner child has been asking for you to love him or her for so very long. And until you do that work, the next steps are going to be bumpy because your inner child doesn't trust you. I like to say to my clients when they do my inner child meditation that we do on Align, that your inner child doesn't trust you because you're a stranger and he or she is doing exactly what they should be doing right now until you prove to them that you are a worthy parent. Week 2 is all about reclaiming your wonder child. Your wonder child is your first self, your creative self. It's the connection to source. It's the connection to any channeled information that wants to come through. Everyone has an imagination. Everyone has an intuition, and this is what we want to switch you onto this week. We learn about what your wonder child wants to reclaim back in your world from your past. That might be a gift that you gave up, like dancing or art or singing or horse riding, whatever it is. And we learn about what your wonder child wants you to do now as an adult and bring this creativity back into the world. Week 3, we look at family karma. We look at the conditioning that's come down the family line and we decide whether or not you want to do that anymore. We see where you were a catalyst, where are you changing in your family line? What are you looking to transmute so that your family line changes forwards for the better? We look at clearing your conditioning in week 4. We look at your limiting beliefs. What are you still holding that you don't need to anymore? Where can we strip back the onion layers and start to really recondition the mind and change your programming? Week 5 is all about the dream work. The dream work we look at is the deep subconscious mind. Your dreams are giving you information all the time. They are coming to you to give you information about how to change your world, how to change your inner dynamics. And most of us don't realize this because we've lost this ability. So this week is quite a big week for me because I interpret all of your dreams. We go through at least 3 of them. Sometimes there's a lot more. It depends on how well you are able to remember your dreams. But I teach you how to do that also. And we dive really deep into the subconscious in this week. It's an amazing week to work with. Week 6 is about soul elements, where we look at Which elements are you primarily showing up as? I love to do this work with people because it really helps to give an overall view of your dominant personality traits. Are you a fire person? Are you primarily water? Are you an air person who likes to chat a lot and have fun and has loads of ideas, but maybe you struggle to manifest in the 3D? Are you an earth person? Right? So we look at all of this and we start to learn the elements that we need to embody within the self in order to become a more fully rounded adult version of ourselves. It also helps us to see what we're attracted to and what we're attracted by. And it also helps you with other people, maybe in your family or with your friends. You can see who they show up as primarily and who you're attracted to in your world. So week 7 is about conscious communication. We look at how we can balance our communication and speak more authentically and effectively so that other people understand us. It also helps us to understand us. So communication is where we start to learn to speak our truth. We learn that actually there's power in our vulnerability and there's strength when we choose ourselves and we honor ourselves by speaking our truth. Week 8 is about emotional balance. I have many people ask me about this week. Emotional balance is really about understanding there is no balance. It's not about creating balance and becoming a Zen master. It's about bouncing back. Even when we're feeling emotional, do you have the space to bounce back? Can you create the space to hear your soul voice speaking to you even when you're triggered? So this week is pretty juicy. Week 9 is about self-love liberation, where we really start to look at how do we love ourselves? Because spiritual community talk about this all the time, but no one tells us how to do it. So let's look at what self-love is. Let's learn about honoring and respecting the self and not just jumping into forgiveness in certain situations when we haven't checked in with what's going on with our inner child. Let's look at how we are loving ourselves. Are we doing it effectively? Let's look deeply at that. Week 10 is about becoming a conscious creator. No more victimization. Let's create the world that you want to create. Let's start building your vision board that we do throughout Align. And I'll tell you one thing about the vision board that's important. We do this from a place where we are clearing before we place items on our vision board. Because if you put things on a vision board when you haven't checked in with your subconscious, they're probably not going to manifest fully and they're not going to be soul aligned. So we create from a place of doing the clearing work and then putting it on there. And becoming a conscious creator takes you to become aware of what you're choosing. So we want to look more fully at this week. Week 11 is about honoring your body wisdom. We go diving deep into the body and starting to really look at what the body signals are trying to deliver to us. We start to create space for it. We have to understand that the body is speaking to us all the time. And I want to really help you here navigate the difference between fear and intuition in your gut. So this is where we create that connection from your soul voice, from the gut, up into the mind. And the last week is week 12, which is soul voice activation, where I really want to help you to understand how soul journaling can help you activate the soul voice in the 3D. It can help activate it within your persona, in your personality. You can start bringing this out into your persona instead of the ego taking over your persona and becoming you. We want to create a soul voice that is your archetypal parent, the parent that you maybe never had, and the parent that you're certainly not being at the moment for yourself. So the last week is all about that. And you'll see here, that's a lot of information that I'm trying to deliver within a short period of time. The last time we did the course, it went so quickly, I couldn't believe it. I could probably run it over 6 months, but at the moment we're doing it over 3. And so each of these, packages really are, I value about $297 because there's a lot of work in each week that we do this. Okay? So you also get on my Align course one-to-one coaching with me. And to work with me one-to-one normally for 3 months is nearly £2,000. And you also get access to my DIY body detox course. So for those of you who don't know, Before I was doing alignment work and inner child work, I ran a 21 body DIY body detox course that taught you to really cleanse the body. And I really started getting into detoxing emotions. In fact, I did many talks around the UK and actually abroad as well on detoxing your emotions, because I realized that juicing in particular and clearing yourself of unwanted junk like sugars and, man-made carbs really were the point where I could effectively in me cleanse any toxic emotions that I had. It was a really great healing modality, and I saw over and over and over again with my clients. So I started to talk a lot about this work. This was one of the key points in my awakening in my work with the inner child. So I'm going to give you that course for free. You're going to get that. It's valued at $197. You're going to have that too. And there's 3 weeks worth of meal plans, 3 weeks worth of shopping lists, and 3 weeks worth of group support, right? We're going to do this together. January is a great time to actually dive into this and cleanse yourself for 2019. And then we're going to also have my conscious relationship course. Now, guys, for those of you in relationship or out with relationship at the moment, this is super important. I ran this year in the summer, 2 weeks of conscious relationship work. We did toxic relationships and healing those, and we also did conscious relating. Now, for this 2-week course, I did a live stream every single day, and I'm bringing the course out in February. But I am going to give you this for free if you sign up to Align this round, right? If you pay up front for Align. This course is valued at $497, and I will be releasing it in February for everyone else who isn't on Align. But you guys get it for free if you sign up, okay? So the total cost, the total value of this is $6,255, but I'm not going to charge you that, okay? You don't have to worry about that. I'm not charging that. I'm only asking for you to pay $997 for all of this work, for all of these weeks of work, of alignment, of learning about your inner child, of learning about your family conditioning, stripping that away, throwing it away now, of learning how to speak your truth, of learning about body wisdom, of learning about how to love yourself fully. All of these things of connecting to your soul voice. You also get my one-to-one coaching. You still get one-to-one coaching with me. We do 1 week on one-to-one coaching and 1 week off where we do our group work. So you're never unsupported. We're doing group work every first week. We start with the first week with the groups, and then you do one-to-one coaching with me so I can catch up with you every week. Okay? And you also get my DIY body detox. If you check out on YouTube DIY body detox testimonials, you will see some of the people talking about their experience on the detox and how they regained clarity, how they lost weight, how they really started to understand themselves more deeply. You'll see all of that. And my conscious relationship course for $497, you get that for free, okay? If you are saying, that sounds amazing, but I don't have that money to pay up front, you can still be part of this, right? You can still join, and you can pay in 4-part payments of $275, okay? You will still get my DIY body detox. I will still give you that for free, but you won't get the conscious relationship course if you don't pay up front. So the conscious relationship course is for the first 10 people who pay up front for Align. But if need be, you can still get the detox and still get in Align and have the one-to-one coaching with me for 4-part payments of $275. And so I just want to show you this quickly. This is some testimonials of some of the people I've worked with. I've only selected a few. Erica worked with me. She's a coach who was really struggling with some blind spots in her life. And sometimes coaches need coaches, you know? Sometimes we're still people who need to have support. Everyone needs support. Everyone needs someone to mirror back things that are hidden in their shadow. George was a really interesting one for me. George is also a healer, and I really found working with him super interesting in my own alignment because I felt really called to sort of talk to him about what I could see. I could see there was a little block within myself where I was scared to speak the visions that I see as well as what I know intuitively. And so with George, I said to him, I see your inner child, and he's standing with Aslan. And I didn't know why it was Aslan, but I said, standing with Aslan, and he's asking you to claim the land. He's asking you to claim yourself and bring your fire back. And George said to me, Aslan was my favourite character as a child. And in fact, I loved him so much that I have him tattooed on my chest above my heart. Now that blew my mind. Not only for him to have such a connection with his inner child, that speaking so clearly, but for myself, for me to realize that actually whatever I intuit for you, I must deliver to you. And I've made it my practice ever since. Whatever I see for you, whatever comes through for you as a message from your soul, I will deliver you on this course. And Francesca worked with me previously and decided to come back onto the alignment course because she wanted to do more work. Francesca has up-leveled and done the work every single week. She's like my perfect client in the sense that she was ready and done, and she flew with doing the work. She really listens, she really pays attention, and she really does it even if she feels scared. And now her inner child has led her to doing some pottery, which has sort of developed into this little thing, and I'm sure it's going to become this flourishing little business for her, and who knows where it will go. She did clear some trauma, and there's maybe still little bits to do in other parts of her life, but at the moment she's completely flying. And I did an interview with Francesca that I will be sending out by email. If you haven't seen it and you would like to hear from someone who's done the work and not just me saying it's amazing, then please message me at hi@yoursoulrevealed.com and just put in there about Francesca's interview, and I will send it over to you, okay? So you can hear from someone who's been there. So I would love for you to join us. And if you go to yoursoulrevealed.com/align, you can sign up today. If you would like to ask me any other questions about it before you sign up, if you have a little bit of that fear kicking in from your ego, then you can message me at hi@yoursoulrevealed.com, and I will happily answer any questions. But I hope you join us. We're going to be starting, within the next month, and I can't wait. The last round was so amazing to see everyone transforming and changing. And I will be doing some more interviews with some of those who have been on the course. So as I said, just message me and I will send you them over. And I look forward to working with you soon. And thank you very much for staying with me till the end of the webinar and joining me for all this time. And I hope that you got lots of value from what I delivered to you today. Okay, so I will love you and leave you. And remember, in order to shine, you must align. And I will speak to you very soon. Bye for now.